The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. We are previewing the SEC football season. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com and use the promo code STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. We continue to roll through our college football previews, and overall, football as a whole is kind of on a dead spot at the moment, but there's always something going on and always something to talk about. Well, welcome in. I'm Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you been?
Doing good. Like I said, football season is really just around the corner here. So, both the NFL, but especially college, be picking up here soon. And again, it's a great time of the year for sports with a lot of stuff going on, but it's always exciting getting ready for the football season.
Yeah, it is. And we've been through the ACC, we've been through the Big 12, and we've been through the Big 10. And so today we turn the page to the SEC. We did reach out for some player interviews as we were able to do the last 3 weeks, but everyone politely declined the show this week for the SEC previews. So no guests this week, just the wonderful faces of the Stover family here for you today. So let's dive right in because there is plenty to discuss about the upcoming SEC schedule. Dad, we're going to start off with our tiers as we always do. We're looking for championship level teams, looking for SEC championship level teams, then bowl eligible teams and non-bowl eligible teams. So let's start with the top tier, the championship level, guys that we think are going to contend or can contend for a national championship this year out of the SEC. And I'm really intrigued to see who you have in this tier this year.
Well, I think that the SEC is really going to be it's always an interesting conference, and there are really a lot of evenly matched teams. But I think you could always have a team from the SEC win the national championship. But I think to be fair, probably I have 3 teams in this tier. Okay. So I would have Texas, Georgia, and Alabama.
Interesting. Okay. So I have Texas as well in that group, but I do not have Alabama and I do not have Georgia in that tier this year either. This year I will throw in there along with Texas LSU. I think they're due for a very good season, and I'll put Tennessee in that category barely. I'm arguing whether or not I should do this, as well as Ole Miss, and I put Tennessee and Ole Miss kind of in this weird spot at a 1.5 tier instead of tier 1, but I think they're a little bit more than SEC contenders if they have everything go right for them this year. So I got Texas, LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss in that category. Then when it comes to SEC championship contenders, guys that, obviously if they win the SEC, they could be in it for the national championship, but I see that more as their ceiling. There's where I have Georgia. There's where I have Alabama as well. And maybe a surprise team for some, I'll throw Florida into that mix, as I think they're destined to have an incredible season this year as well. So in the second tier, I've got Georgia, Alabama, and Florida this year.
The second tier, I had Tennessee. I almost put them in the first tier, but I thought, well, I'll be doing that just because I'm a Tennessee fan, so I didn't. But Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss in the second bracket there.
All right, so bowl eligible is the rest of us here, or almost a lot of us at least. I've got South Carolina there, Texas A&M there. I've got Auburn there. I have Mizzou there. And that is all that I have in that tier, Dad. So who do you have in the third tier?
I had Texas A&M. I have Auburn. I have South Carolina. I have Oklahoma, Florida, and Missouri.
Okay. I don't know if I said South Carolina or not. I have them in that tier too. So non-bowl eligible teams, I go Mississippi State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma, I believe, in that tier. Who do you have in the non-bowl team tier?
Well, I have the same four teams you do, except I have Oklahoma going to a bowl. So I have Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy, and Mississippi State.
Yeah, Oklahoma having this weird spot at 5 or 6 wins, so they obviously I'm there close to that spot on them, and I've kind of got them. We'll talk about the teams here in a moment. Similar spots as a few teams that best case scenario they do a lot better than that, but I'm not sure about this year. So let's dive into it and let's start with Texas. Dad, obviously, what we know about Texas going into this year is they've got a really good quarterback with a lot of pedigree to go with them. Last season, Texas was 13-3, 7-1 in the conference. They were also, I'm trying to see here, 7-1, I believe, at home, 4-0 on the road. Last season, their losses coming in the SEC championship game and what was I going to say? Playoffs. So, Dad, you sit here and you look at Texas, and Arch Manning obviously is the story, right? So we're starting the Arch Manning era in Texas. How long will that era last? Will it be 1 season? Will it be 2 seasons? I tend to be on the 2-season side of things here, but nonetheless, Texas, 2 straight playoff appearances, back-to-back 12-win seasons for the first time since 2009. They do open the year at Ohio State. Most of their offensive line, although they don't have a ton of starts under them, have been working with Arch Manning for the last 2 years because they've all been backups together. So there's at least familiarity there as well. Texas returns a 1,000-yard rusher and Quintrevion Wigner, and they've also got defensive end Quinn Simmons, who had 9 sacks as a freshman last year. They bring in a big nose tackle from Purdue in the transfer portal, and Breviary Cole. That's a hard one for me to get out there as well. And Dad, this year they've got a win total of 9.5. I look at their schedule, and they've got some tough ones, and they got some tough road games this year. But I'm willing to go over on 9.5 for Texas for this season. How do you feel about Texas?
Yeah, I have over 9.5 also. Again, they do have, some tough games, but in some ways I look at their schedule and I think it's fairly favorable. So, where there is some road games and you still have Texas getting used to some of the SEC places, like they'll go to the Swamp this year. I assume probably didn't play there last year, or some different things like that. But Sarkisian really seems to have Texas going in the right direction. They definitely can recruit well, and it'll be fun to see Arch Manning and see how that goes. But they should be very good.
Yeah, the one thing about Texas is they have a lot of easier games in between their hard games. They're not going back to back against really, really good teams this year. So they open the year at Ohio State, then they get 3 pushovers to a degree: San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. Then, Dad, in week number 5, October 4th, they're going to the Swamp, like you mentioned. I think that's a crucial game. It's a crazy home environment. It's a team that's going to be really good this year. And it's also where Florida has a few weeks themselves to kind of figure some things out and prepare for that game. They get to see some more tape on Arch Manning, those kinds of things. After the Florida game, they got Oklahoma. That hasn't been, what it always has been in the past. Then Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. Then they go to Georgia, which I've got down as another important game. So really 3 big road games: Ohio State, Florida, and Georgia this year. Then they close out the season with 2 home games against Arkansas and Texas A&M as well. So, yeah, I look at that, Dad, and I go, I mean, they should beat Florida, but it's going to be a tough environment. I think they should beat Georgia. We'll talk about them next, but it's going to be a tough environment. And I think in week 1, they should beat Ohio State, even with a young quarterback at Ohio State that we've already talked about. So I think they should win all 3 of those games. And if they win all 3 of those games, I cannot see them being under 9.5 wins.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll win all 3 of those, but again, I think they can go over 9.5. If they win all 3 of them, it's going to be quite a season, no doubt about that. So, we in that first game right off at Ohio State, that'll be that should be quite a game there, no doubt about it. So,
yeah. Now, and the fun thing is that Ohio State tried to get it pushed to later kickoff time. Texas denied that, so they stick at a noon kickoff there for that first game as well. We'll see how all that bulletin board stuff plays into it also. All right, let's go to Georgia next. And Georgia obviously has been just great here over the last decade. Last season, 11-3. They were 6-2 in the conference last year. Both of those losses on the road, by the way. The offense has to find itself. Last year, the run game just wasn't that great. They lost 4 offensive linemen from that. Quarterback Gunnar Stockton returns. But again, I just don't look at Gunnar Stockton and see the explosiveness, the guy that's going to go out and just win games. I have a hard time seeing that. So with that, they lost 4 edge rushers, 2 of them to the NFL, 2 of them to the transfer portal. That doesn't mean that the cupboard is bare. It just means that the experience is different coming into this season. Biggest transfers they brought in a wide receiver from USC, Zachariah Branch, and also Elko Madozi, and the linebacker edge rusher from Army comes over as well. So, Dad, I look at this team, 9.5 win total is what they have. I already told you I don't have them as national championship contenders this year because I don't believe in Gunnar Stockton as being that kind of quarterback. They've got a road game at Tennessee. They got home game against Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. So I've got them going under 9.5 this year.
Yeah, I still have them over 9.5. I just, the way they can reload and with Kirby Smart, the way he's been able to, I just can't see a Georgia team just, falling off that much. Maybe they will. Again, the SEC is really going to be interesting in the next few years because, bringing in Texas and OU and other teams are getting stronger, no doubt about it. So, going to be a very competitive, but I just can't see Georgia dropping that far. I think they can win 10 games. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I look at their schedule. I go, okay, their 4th and 5th game is at Tennessee and then home against Alabama. Then their 6th and 7th game, 7th and 8th game is home against Ole Miss, home against Florida. Those games are going to be really tough. Then they go on and they get home against Texas. I just think that it just lines up for them to have some drop off this year. I think 9 wins is still that's where I have their number at. So I don't think it's a bad season, but it's just not going to be up to where they're used to being up to. All right, let's go to LSU next. LSU last season they were 5-3 in the conference, 9-4 overall. Garrett Nussmeier is back. Last year, he had over 4,000 yards and 29 touchdowns. He is a Heisman candidate coming into the season. He is considered by many potential quarterback 1 in the draft next year. He's in the conversation at the very least. They've got 3 solid receivers and a returning guy, Aaron Anderson. They bring in a transfer from Oklahoma, Nick Anderson, and they bring in a Kentucky transfer, Barian Brown. All these guys with a lot of experience. And very, very good. They've got two new offensive tackles as theirs both got drafted. And they've got a freshman running back, Harlan Berry, that is going to be very, very good. Linebacker on the defensive side, Harold Perkins, who everyone thought was going to go into the draft, but he got hurt last year. He returns, should be healthy. And so we'll see how that plays out for LSU as well. So, again, I go to experienced quarterback, a coach who now has had some time to kind of build his culture there at LSU. Their win total is at 8.5. And even though they have 3 tough road games, I'm going to go over 8.5 for LSU.
Yeah, I'll go over 8.5 also. I had them at 9 wins. Again, LSU is one of those teams that just seems like they're going to be good, always going to be good. Be interesting to see again how Kelly does there, but it looks like you said, he's changing the culture, and we'll see, how that goes there. I think, the really big game for them will be that Clemson game. If they win that, then they're really on the way. And if they lose that, then, they've got some other tough conference games, some things coming up. So that'll be a big game. But boy, if they win that, that would really set them on the way.
Yeah, three tough road games. You've got the first game of the season at Clemson. Then you've got at Ole Miss later in the season and at Alabama later in the season as well. So they got some other games at home that'll be tough too. But those are the ones kind of that I'm looking at for LSU. I think they lose week 1 to Clemson. But after that, I think it's, plenty of opportunity for them there in the SEC. They are also, by the way, playing Southeastern Louisiana this year. So congratulations to Southeast Louisiana for getting that paycheck this season as well. All right, let's go to Tennessee next, Dad. Tennessee last season, 6-2 in the conference, 10-3 overall. We're really good at home last year, but we saw a kind of a change in the offense last season where we're used to the high-flying passing game from Coach Heupel. Last year, it was actually more run-heavy is where they had their success. They did have QB drama in the offseason. Nico transfers to California. Joey Aguilar, who was going to go to California, instead shifted gears and came to Tennessee. Tennessee could have 6 sophomores or younger start on offense this year, 2 on defense as well. They have 1 returner on the offensive line and tackle Lance Hurd. The defense has 2 straight seasons with 100+ tackles for loss, and the strong defensive line and 2 stud cornerbacks should help that defense continue to be very, very good for Tennessee. Aguilar coming in is important, and I think he'll be good. They also add an offensive lineman from Arizona, Wendell Moe Jr., an offensive guard there as well. Dad, I look at Tennessee's schedule, and they're at home against Georgia this year. They go on the road to Alabama and on the road to Florida. Those are the 3 games kind of I'm looking at for Tennessee, but their win total is at 8.5, and I've got them going over 8.5 this year for the Vols. How do you sit on them?
Yeah, I have them over 8.5 too. I do think you're right. It'll be interesting to see how the quarterback does. If he is efficient, then they should be in good shape. They lost a running back there, but they tend to recruit and have good running backs there. Their offensive line, is big. Heupel's just a really good coach, so. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. I was interested when I looked at the schedule, the fact that they do play Georgia so early.
Yeah.
That would really be a boost if they beat Georgia early. Well, I think it's second, third game of the year.
Yeah. Third game.
If they can do that, that will really, set things on the way. But you do have at Alabama, at Florida. But again, those are games, they've played every year, and they've had some success here lately. Back in the day, they couldn't win at all at Florida, but I think they've got a better shot at that. And, we'll see at Alabama. So
traditionally, Tennessee didn't play Florida late in the season, though, right? They're playing them second to last game of the year.
Yeah, they used to play them real early, usually in the
third Saturday.
First 3 or 4 games, it seems like they played them early. So that's really swapped around. And I don't know if that'll be good or bad for them from there. It'll definitely be a big game that time because that was one of the games you lost that one early. It kind of soured the whole season. And so that is different. Of course, Alabama game always falls in October there. Back in the day, as Coach Bryant said, men become boys become men on the 3rd Saturday in October. So we will see.
Yep. So they still have them 3rd Saturday in October, Alabama. But Florida's down close to Thanksgiving, second to last week of the year. So that was kind of crazy, I thought. But you look at the rest of the schedule. New Mexico State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, UAB, Arkansas, Mississippi State, East Tennessee State, Syracuse. So they get a pretty good draw outside of those 3 games. They need to win those other ones, of course, as well. All right, let's go to Alabama next. And Dad, last season, the fans are still being relatively patient with the coaching change, and I think that we're going to get to the end of that patience if things don't look up this season in Alabama. Last year, 9-4, 5-3 in the conference. Quarterback looks like Ty Simpson. He's a redshirt junior there for Alabama. They got a star, young wide receiver in Ryan Williams. Their defense is incredibly experienced, but Dad, they lost to Vanderbilt last year. I can't just walk away from that. And to me, that defined their season last year, that you just can't have those losses. Those are the ones you can't have if you're Alabama, and they're the ones that we didn't see them have for so many years as well. So they've got a couple, of course, transfers in as well. Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton and A&M offensive guard Cam Dewberry come in as well to help Alabama out. Dad, I've got them. They're at 9.5. I've got them under by a game. I think they're at 9, or by half a game, I guess. I've got them at 8 to 9 wins, somewhere in that range. And I don't know how that would go over in Alabama if they end up with 9 wins or 8 wins this season. 4 losses. That's not Alabama football. And I'm intrigued. I don't know. Well, what's your thoughts, first of all, on the win total, and then kind of how much patience will they have with their current coach?
Well, I will go under like you. I think 9 games. I think they could win 10, but we will see.
Yeah.
From there, I again, like you mentioned with LSU, they've had time for the coach to establish the culture. Obviously, a new coach at Alabama has to have a little bit of time to, especially when you're following, Nick Saban there. Yeah. And I think he is a good coach. I do think, I don't know a lot about him, but what I've read, he does have, it'd be a different culture there. And again, I think if the players buy into that, Alabama is going to have the ability, they'll have the type of players that, will be very tough to play against, no doubt about it. And I think you said the defense, is returning guys there. So, you got to have a good defense. That helps you a lot, obviously, in the SEC. But, they do need to be on top of it, no doubt about it. You got teams, they lose, you can't lose to Auburn. There's teams, they've got to, the kind of middle of the road teams from there. And then, of course, they've got games with Georgia, with Tennessee. So we will see. I have an out-of-conference game with Wisconsin. That'll be kind of an interesting game also. The Alabama should handle that easily. Yes. So, we will see. Again, normally you think of an Alabama team, that wouldn't be a problem. So we'll see. They need to be that way. And I think they'll be pretty competitive.
Yeah, road games against Georgia and South Carolina are kind of what I'm looking at. Home games against Tennessee and LSU. October 4th is the rematch. Alabama, Vanderbilt. This one's at Alabama. Dad, point spread. I know we're not gamblers. Point spread for Alabama versus Vanderbilt. I'm going to put it somewhere at around the minus 38 for Alabama. I don't know. What do you think that game's going to look like?
Well, we'll see how the teams are doing there, but that should be an ugly game. Alabama needs to not only win that one. Now, again, we don't know exactly what all Vanderbilt's going to have, but Alabama needs, at Alabama, they need to just run over them, and that will help, erase. Last year will be history, and they'll plan on sometime in 50 years looking back and saying, wow, what happened that year? But we'll see.
All right, let's go to South Carolina next. South Carolina last season 9-4, 5-3 in the conference. Lenora Sellers is the story in South Carolina this year. A lot of people currently have him sitting at QB1 in the NFL draft next season. Last year, he had over 2,500 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, with another 674 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns on the ground as well. Last year, South Carolina had 184.4 rushing yards per game. That's pretty solid. Mike Shula comes in as the new offensive coordinator. The defense was 4th in the SEC last year in total defense, 3rd in sacks, and 4th in interceptions. And so the anticipation is, even though they lost a couple guys to the draft this year, the anticipation is the defense is going to be very, very good. And they have basically transferred in about 6 guys to help on the defense for this season. They bring in a very good running back from Utah State, Rasul Faison, and they also brought offensive lineman Boaz Stanley in from Troy to help out as well. Dad, the win total for South Carolina is 7.5, and I have a hard time figuring out this team because when you have a quarterback that's anticipated to be one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, you would like to hear the word the word 7 or the number 7.5 and think immediately you're going over that. I kind of have them sitting at 7 wins, Dad, and that's so I'm going to go under 7.5 this year with South Carolina. I think that their ceiling could definitely be 9 wins. I see them more at 7 right now. How do you feel about 7.5 for South Carolina?
Yeah, I agree. 7 wins is kind of what I came up with. So I think you go under 7.5, but they're a team that could, definitely exceed that. And if they have the quarterback lives up to that, they're going to need to win, some of those middle of the road games like Virginia Tech, Texas A&M. They're going to have to win those. They can't lose those games because they are probably going to lose some of the, top of the line games there.
Sure.
And of course they've got the game with Clemson, and that will be a tough one. So,
yeah, there's potential. They start the year 5-0. Virginia Tech's game 1, then South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, at Missouri will be a tough one, and then Kentucky. Those are their first 5. They could easily be 5-0 at that point. Then they go at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. Then a tune-up game against Coastal Carolina before facing off against Clemson to end the year. And so if they can start off 5-0, that's going to put them in a really good spot at that point. They've got some momentum. They got some things going for them for those tougher games that are going to come in the second half of the season. I find it hard after you get those. If you get those 5 wins, they could easily get to 8. But they're going to have to win those games. Like you said, I got Mizzou as a game. Ole Miss and A&M were the games that I kind of spotlighted there for South Carolina as well. And I'm intrigued to watch Lenore Sellers more this year as I prepare for. I've already started on the big board. We put up on the bellyupsports.com website for the draft next year, and so I'm more attentive to the guys that'll be in the draft this year than those that were not in the draft last year. So, anyways, I'm intrigued to see that one as well. Let's go to Florida next, Dad. And I've been kind of high on Florida so far this offseason. Last year, let's see here. Where did I put that? There they are. 8-5 last year, but 4-4 in the conference. Can't be doing that again. DJ Lagway is the potentially an incredible quarterback. I mean, he gives you his skill set and things of that nature. If he puts it all together, Florida is going to be so dangerous. But they have 5 games against preseason top 20 teams. Last year, DJ Lagway was 6-1 in his 7 starts. He had 12 40-plus yard completions. He has with him 2 incredibly explosive running backs, very young but very talented wide receivers, and the offensive line is incredibly experienced as well. The defensive side of the ball for Florida, they have potential to be the best defense in the SEC. So when you throw in the talent on defense with the potential of DJ Lagway, that's where I look at Florida and go, they're going to be incredibly dangerous. So I kind of am labeling Florida as spoilers this year. They're the team that whoever they play, they have the ability to beat them. Will they beat them is another question. But even in their tough games, they've got the potential to come in on one of these weeks and be a team that shouldn't win. That's an underdog coming into the game and pull off the upset win this season as well. Their win total is at 6.5. I am hammering the over on that one. Dad, I look at, they got some tough road games at Miami, at Texas A&M, at Ole Miss, and I continue to spotlight that Tennessee game at the end of the season as well, which is in Florida. And you talked about as well, Texas traveling to the swamp this year too. But I go over 6.5. I have them at 7 wins, and I wouldn't be completely shocked if they're at 9 wins when the season's done.
Yeah, I was real intrigued to see what you were going to say about them because you were in Florida to be good. And as I looked at it, I just wasn't really as sure about that. They really do have some tough games. So they're going to have to surprise. They're going to have a couple upsets, like you said. I do think they can go over 6.5 and they could get to 7, but they're going to have to spoil 2 or 3 games to have a really big year again, because we're talking about different teams that we're thinking will be good. Teams like South Carolina, real strong with LSU, different ones like that. So Florida, and again, it's always hard to play in the swamp. So anybody that plays down there, has to be ready to play. But I'm anxious to see if they have as good a year as you think they could have. And again, if their quarterback's good, it's always great to watch good quarterbacks. So I'm anxious to watch this guy, the guy from South Carolina, just see how they do.
Yeah, and again, I got to go back to it. I think that they're going to be in every game. And that if you're in the game, then you have a chance to win it. A fumble, an interception, punt return, those kinds of things can happen and change the course of a game. So I just think they're good enough to be in every game, and therefore I think they're good enough for some upsets this year as well. All right, let's go to Texas A&M next. Texas A&M last year, 8-5 overall, 5-3 in the conference. Marcel Reed returns. Texas A&M was the highest scoring team in the SEC and SEC play last year. They have all SEC running back Le'Veon Moss returning from injury. They have the top offensive line in the SEC, and their coach Elko, he takes over the defensive play calling this year, which needs major improvement on that side of the ball, especially in their pass rush. So if he can turn things around, you can tell he's, he understands his job's at risk there as well, and things need to get right very quickly at A&M. They bring in some definitely some transfer help. They got a couple wide receivers, one from SEMO, the other one from NC State. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring in 2 defensive linemen, one from Florida, TJ Searcy, and then another from Iowa State, Tyler Onedum, and then a cornerback from Washington, Jordan Shaw, as well, to help improve that defense. Dad, when I look at Texas A&M, the games that I'm kind of looking at they need to win are all home games. Florida, Mizzou, South Carolina. 7.5 is their number. I don't know why, but I'm going to go over 7.5 for Texas A&M. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I'm going to go under 7.5. I have them at about 7 wins. Again, we've talked about all these teams being strong, and everybody can't win. So at some point, not everybody's going to be 8 or 9 wins. So, and A&M's going to fall in that category. I think, you're right. South Carolina game will be big. For them, a game like Auburn, would be big. They're going to have to win some of the games they're supposed to win. But they have their share of tough games. Also, they're at Notre Dame and at LSU, so that'll be tough.
Well, I looked at it as 7 wins. Here's 7 of them: UTSA, Utah State, Mississippi State, Arkansas. I give them Missouri, Samford, and then you've got like South Carolina, Florida, both home games. Auburn's a home game as well. So that's where I kind of saw them going over, getting a few of those wins, especially at home as well. All right, let's go to Ole Miss next. What an intriguing team. Ole Miss last year, 10-3, 5-3 in the conference. They thought they should have been in the playoffs. You still won't be able to convince me that they should have been last year. But they have 17 starters returning. 17 starters that are gone this year. That's a big turnaround down there for Coach Kiffin. They do have a manageable schedule, though. Austin Simmons is the quarterback that will step up this year. The defense was second overall in scoring defense. They had 52 sacks last year. But again, it's a whole new group, and they're pretty young as well. I've got them sitting there at about 8.5 is the win total, Dad. I see them as a sneaky 9-win team this year. I don't know. I think that might be a little crazy. How you feeling about Ole Miss this year?
Yeah, I had them at 9 wins. Going over, it's hard for me to evaluate Ole Miss just because I really don't like the coach at all. And right. But he obviously knows how to get players and develops. It's always hilarious to me that he's the guy complaining about people getting people the wrong way. I think what are we talking about here? But anyhow, he does get players down there, and they have turned things around. I think they have some big games. I think LSU and Florida would be the ones that would really make or break, how are they going to really compete for the conference championship? But one of these years they may be. So
yeah, and they get to host LSU in Florida. They will travel to Georgia. And that's pretty much their tough game. South Carolina maybe, but it's at home also. So that's where I go over, just because I think their schedule is pretty relatively easily, and the offense always seems to work for Lane Kiffin. All right, let's go to Auburn next. Auburn last year 5-7 overall, 2-6 in the conference. They have a transfer quarterback. Jackson Arnold comes over from Oklahoma. He's a former top 5 recruit. They have a strong offensive line, and they lost a solid running back, so we'll see how they can do with that. Defense was good, should be good again. Keldrick Falk is the guy to watch out there, the pass rusher for Auburn. He's a future first-round draft pick in the upcoming draft as well. They bring in, obviously, some transfers, a guy, offensive line help from Virginia Tech, wide receiver from USC, and they also bring in offensive lineman from USC. They also bring in a wide receiver from Georgia Tech, Eric Singleton Jr. Really, Jackson Arnold is going to be the difference maker for Auburn, whether they do well or do poorly. Can he live up to his expectations as well? Their numbers at 7.5. I don't have them hitting 7.5. I've got them going 7. At Oklahoma will be a tough game. At A&M and at Baylor are the games that I look at and go, not sure that Auburn's going to get through some of these games. So I'm going to go under 7.5 for Auburn.
Yeah, I had them at 8 wins, so I could go over 7.5. But again, tough games at South Carolina and Oklahoma from there. But it looks like I think Auburn's headed a little bit in the right direction. But again, just so many good teams in the conference. But I kind of had them at 8 wins, so we'll go over 7.5.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to Oklahoma next. Boomer Sooner, 6.5 wins is where their win total is at this year. Last year, they got to 6 wins, 6-7 on the year, 2-6 in the conference. That's not going to cut it, though. They've got an incredibly tough schedule this year. They do bring in John Mateer at quarterback. Last year, he had 261.6 yards per game and 44 total touchdowns last year between passing and rushing at Washington State. His offensive coordinator, by the way, comes with him to Oklahoma from Washington State also. Let's see your running back, Jaden Ott, comes over from Cal. He's a big addition. He had over 3,400 all-purpose yards last season. The offensive line does have some question marks. On defense, the defensive backs are very solid. There's an edge rusher, R. Mason Thomas, to be watching out for as well. Dad, when I look at this Oklahoma team, I would love for them to do well, but I am scared that the schedule is just going to be too much for them. 6.5 is the win total. I'm going under for the Sooners this year at 6.5.
Well, I'm probably being optimistic again because we have a good friend that's an OU fan, but I did have 7 wins. Again, the key, though, is going to be games like Auburn, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. They're going to at least have to win one of those, and maybe a couple will be able to handle Missouri. They can't have the conference record like they did last year, like you said. But I think they'll get more adjusted to the SEC. I know when I talked to my friend from OU before the season last year, I said the biggest difference for OU will be just going into these different environments. They're just different places here in the SEC. Some of these, tradition and big stadiums, and I think they definitely will adjust to that. So I'll be hopeful that they'll win 7.
Yeah, week 2 against Michigan's a big one too, Dad. The coach for Michigan will be still sitting out that game, so maybe they can take advantage of that and the early season game there against Michigan. They're at South Carolina, which is a tough one, but I think Missouri is a big one as well. You mentioned South Carolina to Auburn, those kind of games. They just got to win them. They're at Alabama. They host LSU. They're at Texas, or I guess maybe that's a neutral site possibly. So there's going to be games they're not going to win, but there's also games that they really have to win, and it comes down to it for sure. All right, let's go to Missouri. And by the way, John Mateer is getting a lot of publicity. A lot of people really high on him, and I understand he had a good career at Washington State. I'm not sold on him just yet. We'll see how that one shakes out, of course, as well. Let's go to Mizzou next. Missouri last season, they were 10-3 overall, 5-3 in the conference. They've got an easier schedule this year. They do not have to play Georgia, Texas, LSU, or Tennessee, and they get to host Alabama, Texas A&M, and South Carolina. Now, you look at it and you go, okay, who's going to be their quarterback? They got a Penn State transfer in Bo Pribilla. They also have Sam Horn fighting for that job. We'll see who wins that one out. The rest of the offense should be fine, but the defense, we'll see about them. 17th in total defense, 20th in scoring D last year. They bring in 6 FBS starters in the transfer portal. So they've done everything that they really needed to do as far as from the outside looking in to add to this team. The question is, can they put it all together? And I really just don't think they can, even with an easier schedule, Dad. At 7.5 wins, I've got them at 7. So I'm going to go under 7.5 for Missouri.
Yeah, I had under 7.5. I had 7 also. I don't know that they're even as good as 7 wins, but the schedule really does favor them. So they've got games they can win there. And if they can take advantage of that, then that's going to help. They can't lose a game like Kansas and some of that, but we'll see how that goes.
And that's what I did when I looked at their schedule. So they can't lose to Kansas. That's week 2. They're on the road to Auburn and Oklahoma, teams they should be better than, but on the road, maybe they lose those games. And if you're going to lose those 3 games, then that's where it puts you in a lot of trouble. So we'll see how they shake out. I admit I have dogged Missouri as much as any team in the SEC over the years because I just don't think they're an SEC team. I don't think their culture fits the SEC. I think they belong in the Big 12 personally. But that being said, I've never given them the proper respect. Maybe this year they can prove me wrong. But I've got them under as well, 7.5 wins. All right, let's go to Vanderbilt next. Vanderbilt last season had a surprisingly good season, 7 wins. They were above 500 last year, 7-6. They were 3-5 in the SEC. They bring back Diego Pavia at quarterback, which is a huge win for Vanderbilt. Tight end Eli Stowers is a first-round draft pick in the upcoming draft. They have an improved offensive line, which should help their run game, and they have to improve their run game. Now, head coach Clark Lee is giving up the play calling duties on defense, and they've promoted a guy up to defensive coordinator who will be calling the plays there. They've got a solid front 7. The DBs, though, are definitely a little questionable. On the transfer side of things, they transfer in 4 offensive linemen, a Mississippi State wide receiver in Trent Hudson, and a Tennessee cornerback, Jordan Matthews, comes over to Vanderbilt as well. Their win total is set at 4.5. They're going to Virginia Tech, and they're hosting Missouri and Auburn. Those are 3 must-win games, in my opinion. But I've got them going over 4.5. I'm not sure that they get to 6 this year, but I think they at least get to 5. How do you feel about Vanderbilt after their big season last year?
Yeah, that's where I had them, was with 5 wins. So that would be over 4.5. We'll see. The coach is interesting there, and we'll see if things are changing. Again, they don't have the ability at Vanderbilt that in some ways to compete with some of the SEC schools. But boy, they played. But again, last year, I mean, if you're ever going to talk about a team that surprised people, then I mean, it was Vanderbilt in that Alabama game. So, yeah. But we'll see if he can bring them out ready to play every week. Then, hey, there's games like Missouri, Auburn, can they at least start playing with those teams? We'll see.
Yeah, and if you get another 6-win season, that's going to change your recruiting as well a bit. And I know they have some stipulations because of where they are with grades and those kinds of things, but it helps when you have some winning seasons behind you. You go back to the Jay Cutler days. Some of the talent they brought in those days were a little better than other years as well. So we will see. And Diego Pavia, he's fun. I'll just say it that way. He's fun. A lot of Manziel-like on the field energy there. So we'll see how it shakes out for Vandy this year. All right, let's go to Arkansas next. Last season, Arkansas was 7-6 on the year, 3-5 in the conference. Taylon Green returns, but he has to improve at quarterback. No other player returns at the same position on offense, Dad, other than the quarterback. They've got an offensive lineman that is returning, but he's switching to a position. He's going inside from outside. So only one player returns for Arkansas in the same position as he played last year on offense for Arkansas. The run game could be good. We don't know. Wide receivers are really young, and the defense has just a boatload of transfers in as well. Maybe a guy to watch there is cornerback Caleb Wooden comes over from Auburn as well. Dad, the win total is 5.5 for Arkansas. I think they go under. I think they fire their coach. Games at home against A&M, Mississippi State, and Auburn. You got to win 2 of those at least, and I'm not sure they're going to do it. So I go under 5.5 for Arkansas.
Yeah, I had under 5.5 also. I had them at 5 wins, and they'd have to beat some teams like Missouri or Auburn in order to stay above that. So,
yeah, and they got a couple of non-conference games. Notre Dame, they're playing Notre Dame this year. They've got Memphis, who they should be able to beat, but will they? As well. So some question mark games for sure. To give you any hope for Arkansas would be hard for me to do. All right, let's go to Kentucky next. Last year, 4-8, 1-7 in the conference. Zach Zalzada transfers in at quarterback this year. He comes over from Incarnate Word, who's been producing NFL quarterbacks like crazy, it seems like. Stoops is in trouble. At the end of the day, this program is in trouble this year for football. The only reason Stoops is still around is he has a $40 million buyout in his contract. But I think the boosters are going to really be willing to pay that after this season. They had major losses in the portal. They've got a hard schedule. They only have 2 offensive starters returning. That's at guard and tight end. Calzada is 25 years old, their quarterback. Zalzada, 25 years old. The rest of the team is young. The defense does have experience, even though they're young. But Dad, we talked a little bit. We mentioned it in the Dane Key interview last week as he transferred out of Kentucky. When when Big Dog left for Louisville last week, it's a sign that everything's crumbling. And Stoops is, he's worn out all the patience basically that's there. He's going to have a massive surprise season this year to keep his job. And Dad, I just don't see it happening. 4.5 is the win total. I've got him at 3. So maybe 4. They're at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, at Louisville. They have to win those 3 games. And I don't think they're going to beat Auburn. And I think they're going to really struggle with Louisville, and we'll see what Vanderbilt. I think they're so evenly matched this year, so we'll see how that game goes too. So, Dad, I'm going under 4.5 for Kentucky. How about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think go under 4.5, and I think you know more about it from being in that area longer, but I would think Stoops will be moving on after this year, I would think.
Yeah, the fan base's argument, the people who are pro Stoops would say, well, you forget what it was like before he got here. Well, sure, but the last couple of years haven't been that. And now when you're consistently sitting there around the 4 or 5 win mark, when you're not making bowl games, when you're, you got to be at that point now where you say, okay, now we have to make an improvement. And I think this is Stoops' final season in Kentucky. Dad, they open up against Toledo. It's a game they should win, but they may not. So that's going to be, if they lose the Toledo game to start the season, like, good luck the rest of the year with the fan base. It will not be pretty. They go to South Carolina in week 4, to Georgia in week 5, followed by Texas at home, Tennessee at home, Auburn on the road, Florida at home. Like, it's just a stretch that's just going to crush their spirits, I believe, at the very least. So good luck, Kentucky Wildcat fans. I think this is going to be a painful season, but it may get you a new coach when it's all said and done. All right, final team in the SEC is Mississippi State. They are as well at let's see here. Where was I looking at? They've got a really tough schedule this year, Dad, does Mississippi State. Blake Shapen does return at quarterback. He missed the last 8 games last year. Running back Davon Booth is very good. The offensive line's a massive question mark. The defense was last in the SEC in yards allowed per game with 456.4 yards per game given up. The pass rush was horrendous. They only had 10 sacks all season long last year, did Mississippi State. Hence the reason they were 2-10 and 0-8 in the conference. Dad, this year they're traveling to Arkansas and Missouri. Even with the transfers they brought in, I just don't think it's nearly enough. 3.5 is the win total. I'll give them 4 games, but I would not be shocked if they're sitting at 2 or 3 wins again as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I had 4 wins, so that would be plus the 3.5. But yeah, Mississippi State, in a tough spot. And like I said, their schedule really, really tough. They're going to have to upset somebody, to do better there.
Yeah, non-conference. They opened the season with Southern Miss. Then they got Arizona State, which I got that down as a loss. But they've got Southern Miss, Alcorn State, and Northern Illinois. There's 3 wins, I believe, at the very least. And then I think you're looking at, a game that they can pull off a win, whether it be a Missouri or an Arkansas, somewhere in that range. Is maybe even a surprise win at Texas A&M. Those kind of games that they're going to have to win. I just think they'll win at least one of those games. So I'll give them the 4 wins from there. Dad, the SEC is always intriguing. I'm surprised that none of these teams have a win total higher than 9.5 coming into this season. I assumed we'd have at least 2 that were at 10.5, but they're not. So that tells you they're expecting it to be a tough season in the SEC again this year. And that's not from the SEC people. That's from Las Vegas. So you sit there and you see that and you go, okay, it's going to be intriguing to see. First of all, they have to survive the conference. And then after that, they got to survive the playoffs. Last year, they could not survive the playoffs. And so will they be able to this year will be the question mark. And then Arch Manning is going to be the storyline. But when you got Arch Manning, you got Garrett Nussmeier, you've got Lenora Sanders as 3 first-round draft picks next season. You've got potential for an incredible, incredible year in the SEC again. So there you go. There's our thoughts on the SEC. Dad, do you have any other thoughts before we close out today?
No, again, it's going to be very interesting because a lot of those teams are really pretty close. So it'll be interesting to see if one team does kind of all of a sudden they win all the games they need to and somebody jumps up, and stands out at the top. But it could be just really close, no doubt about it.
All right, there you go. So that's our college football preview wrapped up. We'll talk again before the season starts. We'll do some preview of the whole season, kind of a thing. Look at the top 25, all that kind of good stuff as we kick off the season in August. But go back and listen if you missed them. The ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 conference previews. And this has been the SEC preview. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. And if you get a little hungry, why don't you go check out righteousfelon.com for the best jerky you will ever have. Use the promo code STOVE15 at checkout. You're going to get 15% off your purchase each and every time. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.